All right, and we're on. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
me.
Well, thank you for meeting and taking the time to meet with me today. So today we're gonna talk about science, spirituality, life, all those kind of things. And I'm going to start by introducing you and telling a little bit the audience why I wanted to speak to you today, and then you'll tell me how much of the picture I got right. You'll
Very,
tell us.
very good.
So yeah, the reason I wanted you to come today, from what I know, your name is Daniel Wald. You come from Australia, Melbourne, Australia, but you've been living in Europe for around 20 years, between Spain and the Netherlands, and you've traveled around Southeast Asia. You have a really large background and curiosity about spiritual practices and development, and a really long practice as well as embodying those what people call spiritual practice, and really merging that into your everyday life. It seems to me, at least, that spirituality has become a way of life more than a practice.
Mm.
And for the last 9 or 10 years, you've been actually what we can call a teacher of healing energy and and healing consciousness. You have a wife, a daughter, a dog. um, what else? You play golf, and and you surf, and you're a great musician. I can tell everyone that. That's for the details. How did I do?
Could you introduce me to, can I actually take you along to introduction? That was really
Sure.
good. That was really
Sure.
good. It's really difficult when people get asked, what do you do? Or who are you? Who are you is a tough one, because we tend to we tend to go to the book of me, all the things that I've achieved, or all of my desires, or all of my travels, all this sort of history of accomplishments or moments, or things like that. And on one level, that is who I am, which is easy way to connect with this being. But of course, as we both know, and as we work with Vortex Healing and many other systems or awakening processes, there is something more fundamental to who I am. But for all intents and purposes, really, really good. The surfing bit hasn't happened for many years, but apart from that, uh, 10 out
Cool.
of 10. Yeah.
I passed the first test. Happy. That's
Yeah.
nice. So yeah, what I just did is basically describe what you call during classes or workshop the picture of you.
Mm.
uh, but I had the chance to yeah, to be in class and to learn, and to and there is, as you just said, something more fundamental than that. That is, um, I don't know if I can say, that is making your heart beat, and your aliveness.
Mm.
And you're calling this particular essence some Merlin, if I understand correctly. This more fundamental essence has a name as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. Merlin. Firstly, when I would say the word Merlin, or if you read the word Merlin, the first thing you think of maybe is what is it, 15th century or 16th century old England, Middle Age sort of wizardry and King Arthur's court, or ascended masters. I've heard of Saint Germain and different experiences of the word Merlin. In terms of my experience, or the vortex healing, the foundation of vortex healing is what we call the avataric expression of all of this, of the potential for this to be, and the manifestation of this, which we could call divinity, source, oneness, dare I say God, which is both the potential but also the manifestation, the potential to create, but also the creation. And vortex healing is powered by, is probably not a great word, but the intelligence, the intention, And for all intents and purposes, the power of vortex healing is all Merlin. Merlin is a word that best describes the transformational aspect of the divine, where the divine is experiencing itself as separate. We talked about very briefly the experiences, the historic experiences of Daniel that then create this bubble of Daniel that you can connect with as musician, teacher. We'll come back to the inverted commas later. Teacher, husband, father, surfer, Australian, all these attributes. And all these attributes then have a sort of a reaction or a value or a judgment. And there's a part of the mechanism of the divine experiencing itself as something else, having an experience as Daniel. But the transformational quality of Vortex recognizes Daniel having an experience as Daniel. But when it does that, it has these sort of threads of what we call issues, all these different ways that Daniel experiences himself as Daniel, where now that there's the divine source, the universe, oneness, sort of out there, but it's actually not this. Daniel is sort of trying to find source or oneness or divinity. So this aspect of Merlin is a way of, through those issues, through those different threads, um, 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 experiencing or expressing itself as different attributes of Daniel. Vortex healing looks to wake up the root of that, where it first experiences itself as something other than the divine, as a reflection of the divine. And when it does that enough, firstly, there's more inner freedom, there's more presence, there's less reference to the old diary of Daniel and more just being here with Lou rather than, okay, what do I have to bring to this meeting to either impress or to inform, or all these facts and figures and experiences and accomplishments. No, I just be here. I can just be here. And the more that we work with Vortex, we can just be here. Because Vortex, I think you mentioned divine energy, divine consciousness. And the way that separation consciousness sits in this system of Daniel is physically, it's energetically, it's emotionally, it's psychologically. And when we channel, let's say Merlin, when Merlin is able to again, Merlin is not something from out there. It's not a higher power or an ascended master. It's just an aspect of all of this that's looking to transform. And so when we can bridge that aspect of transformation into this story of Daniel, the story of Daniel can sort of just give up being a story and can just be here.
I like that. But it brings me to a question. So in vortex healing, we have Merlin. If we're looking at other practices, we would have other name for divinity, for gods, for goddesses. Um, would you say that Merlin is the quality of all of the divine name that we gave to God and goddesses through all kind of cultures and all kind of spiritual pathway, or is it one of those? And we're channeling, or we're activating that energy, or we allowing that energy to emerge through us. And it can represent all of them. It can welcome, and I'm going to quote a few names that I know, which would be Shakti, Shiva, Mary Magdalena. We have so many from so many cultures. Where do you position Merlin in this divinity circle?
Well, if all is one, then Merlin can't be anything other than all of it. And all is one. So Merlin is all of it. As soon as we start separating various deities, Lakshmi, Shiva, Hanuman, Christ, Amma, It's not all Hindu. Some of it as well is, we have
Yeah.
various aspects of the divine that are fully realized as the divine, as not as being separate. Merlin isn't any different to that. So as soon as we say, well, what's the difference between him, her, that one, we're sort of looking at from a point of view of our experience of separation, where we go, right, well, there's Krishna, there's Jesus, and it's easy then to sort of box them in. But if I was to become Jesus for a moment, there would be no, or if I was to ask Jesus, probably easier. um,
Yeah, I just got scared here for a minute. If
you
I would
know,
become Jesus, gosh, what
probably
could
easier.
you do then?
So if I was to ask Jesus, what's the difference between you and Krishna? Jesus would probably not say there's nothing different between me and Krishna. When we connect, though, with the intention of what they bring, when Jesus brought into the earth this ability for compassion, this deep, deep, deep frequency and vibration of compassion. The hugging saint in India, I'll talk about sort of more recent um, embodied or what we call avataric expressions of the divine. Amma brings in Divine Mother, that ability to really go deep into the heart, and for nurturing and for care and for as well compassion. In fact, I asked Amma one time, what's the difference between you and Merlin? And instead of telling me, because it can never really be told in absolute truth, she showed me, and she did something was orchestrated where I had fractured or dislocated my shoulder, and then Amma healed it the same way that Merlin would bring healing into my life. Amma did the same thing in a way of showing there's no difference. So it's not even in my experience, it's not a philosophical sort of explanation. It's just in actual experience. Amma is no different than Merlin. It's all one. However, there's an intention for Amma to bring in the divine mother aspect of the divine. It's the Merlin intention, or the magical intention, for transformation, for magical transformation. But ultimately, it's all the same.
All right. Transformation. So let's say I don't know anything about vortex healing now. I just met you in the
Yeah,
subway and I was like, this dude looks cool. I'm gonna interview him.
sure,
What can you tell me? How does it work?
sure.
So Merlin comes on the way,
Yeah,
but there
yeah,
is something about a wheel. There is some history there. So
sure. Um,
yeah.
so so let's start with all is one. All is one. The divine, everything is an expression of divinity. Everything is divinity. Creation itself is the divine, but also the manifestation, the intention to manifest creation is all the divine. And it's the divine having an experience over over what we experience as time. Life has evolved to a universe of galaxies and systems and planets, and here we are finding ourselves on a planet. I'm just sort of fast forwarding here through evolution for time's sake, but here we are finding ourselves as an expression of the divine. The divine has manifested out of itself a universe. From that universe, as part of that manifestation, galaxies, systems, planets, and within that planet, there is various life forms. But each of those life forms we could look at, say, are all having a separate life. There is bacterial life, there's viral life, there are animals, and then there's humans. And it appears that we're all having this separate existence. I'm on my journey, you're on your journey. We both had very different experiences, and we've also had similar experiences. We have different reactions to things, maybe different philosophies, but we also share reactions and philosophies. And all of that experience, all of that experience of ourselves then sort of gets stored. And in fact, I said earlier, it's if I was to come to you before Vortex and you say to me, well, introduce yourself, I'm going to refer back to my diary. I'm going to go back to all of these his moments in history that look like accumulate up to me at this point. Now, some of that is interesting, and it is interesting, but the issue happens is that because I've had that experience, and that experience has come with a reaction or with a judgment, it tends to then get held as memory. There's a reaction to an experience, there's a judgment of an experience, either a self-judgment or a projected judgment. And that gets stored not just in my mind as a memory, but somewhere in my body as a memory. It could be my physical body. It could be more subtle bodies. It could be through my energy system, through my sense of self or psychology. And as long as I am identified with those memories, when I meet you in the subway and you say, well, tell me a bit about yourself, the first thing that may come up is like, oh, my back, or oh, I'm going through stuff, relationship stuff, or gosh, the government, oh my God, the government, and it's all these little voices sort of going through of all this stuff, and most of it I'm not even aware of. I'm just here having a conversation with you, and yet there's all of these voices either in my mind or through my body that are quite inaudible or invisible, and yet they're there. They're there, fully keeping me out of as present as I could be with you at this moment, saying, well, who are you? Well, I'm here and now. That's who I am. What Vortex Healing does is it finds through Merlin being divine intention, the intention of transformation, to wake up the identity of those memories, the identity or the attachment to those identities. So it could be perhaps that 2 years earlier, I bumped into someone in the subway that looked exactly like you, except they stole my train ticket, right? Just make
Yep.
something up here.
Sure.
But I got over it, right? Because I'm very evolved and I've done all sorts of workshops and I'm very mature and everything is great and I'm all shanty peace with the world, and I send you off with blessings and thanks, and that's important, and it was a great part of my healing process. Except there's something still there that's still referring maybe to a chapter in my diary that happened even before then and before then. And let's even bring in the concept of a past life. It happened over and over and over again in what is Daniel's soul journey. It could be that it happened to my grandfather and his father, that's now sitting here in my body as my own sort of genetic expression. So when I see you and you say, well, who are you? Well, there's a part of me that's been nice and present and all that. And yet there's all this stuff going, she stole my ticket, right? Now, it's not actually going like that. I'm not sitting there going, but there's all of this sort of chatter and reaction and judgment, and it have nothing to do with you. Maybe it's because you're wearing red that day and there's something to do with the fire engine, or the smallest things that we experience in life and that we react to and judge as part of that experience. It all gets stored here through our system. So Vortex, at a very simple level now, when we channel Vortex or become a channel for Vortex, it gets to the deepest root that it can to start waking up that identification with that is who I am.
Good.
So if we were to
Okay.
meet on the subway, and now are you going to walk away scratching your head?
Yeah, I miss my stuff, but it's okay. No, you're good. Yeah, from that, okay. Because you said two things really, really interesting. Like you said more than two things interesting, but two things that seems to me completely paradoxical. You spoke about time,
Yeah.
And then you spoke about past life and karma. And I don't know how to for me, on my path, on this journey of wondering what life is, and who we are and what we're doing, I'm really confused between those two concepts. Actually, for me, there is no time, so there cannot be any past life and karma. But at the same time, my own reality in my physical body, the issue I'm facing, and the reaction I'm having is creating that notion of time. Um, and I am quite forced to wake up every morning
Yeah.
and to realize that there are still issues, and maybe there are some layers, and yet there is a part of me who does really believe in miracle, that everything can happen in an instant. It doesn't have to take time.
Yeah.
So how do you
Well,
manage those?
well, it's still part of the construct of consciousness. So maybe an easy way to without getting too philosophical or too mental about it, if we go back to this concept that everything is one, all there is the divine having an experience of itself as life.
Mhm.
Now, how does it do that? It needs to have a mechanism to experience itself to do that. So let's say the first mechanism of that, let's call it awareness. There's all sorts of different qualities or essences of the divine: awareness, love, light, being, intelligence. There's all these various, and you've probably heard these words used in different times and places. Let's just say awareness, right? Awareness is, let's use awareness as how does the divine actually become aware that it is the divine.
Yeah, I like that. I like awareness.
So all there is the divine. And then in this mechanism of awareness, what is the divine aware of? Well, it can't be aware of anything else because all is one. So there can't be, well, my divine and your divine and the divine over there, because it's all just the divine. It's all one. So then if all is one, and yet the divine is experiencing something, Lou, Daniel, bookshelf, world, earth, galaxy, something, there's a mechanism in that where the divine becomes aware of itself. I am, and even various scriptures of religions and spiritual philosophies, where where the one it becomes aware of itself, or God created man in his own image, and this kind of text that you see over eons, where the divine is aware of something.
I
Now,
am the I am.
I am, I and I. Even the Rastas try to get into it with I and I. I became really interested in that at one point. Just, anyways, that's it. Let's not, we'll pass that one. So, um, in that mechanism of awareness, aware of itself, something is created because there needs to be a reflection. So there's a reflection of the divine being aware of the divine. There's a reflection. And in that, but for that reflection, you've now got this thing it's sort of like it's creating this space for that reflection to take hold, to actually manifest as something. So in that space, you've sort of got I am the divine, I am aware of the divine. And so in that place here, you've got time and space. Let's just call time and space, because something has to be aware of something, or the divine is being aware of the divine creating something. So you could say that is where awareness becomes consciousness. Awareness becomes consciousness, becomes something. Something now is manifested where the divine, the divine is awareness, the divine is awareness of. Can there be anything else other than aware of itself? So something then, let's say, folds back on itself, aware of itself, reflection back. And in that mechanism, you've got something is manifested. So in that something, and even though I agree with you at the most fundamental level, you are one,
Still.
there's still an experience of the divine as Lu, where there is now Lu in space and time. There's Lu in a body. There's Lu in, let's say, in a journey of a soul journey. There's an experience there as the divine as Lu, but in a reflection of itself. So where you don't get, the reason why you don't get stuck in there is because awareness is still part of you. You know, the reason that you know you're having an experience is still this fundamental awareness. That never changes. That even if it's, there's a good reaction, a bad reaction, a judgment, um, something around the experience of that awareness is always just there. But then so is this experience of experiencing yourself as through space and time. So it's kind of both, right? The absolute truth of you is sitting there beyond space and time, but there's still all of this having an experience through space and time and physicality.
Could we say, as a human being, there is the human set in space and time, and the beingness representing this awareness, this stillness,
Yeah,
this.
that's nice. I like that. You know, the
Yeah,
old saying, be a human being, not human doing, I guess.
exactly. Because when you were saying the awareness is reflecting itself in order to have this experience, we're already in the doing like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
divinity is in
yeah,
its own doing process, getting
yeah,
out of beingness
yeah.
in order to experience something. So when we're sitting in meditation, whether it's vortex healing, but let's speak about advanced meditation practices.
Okay.
Um, for you, if you're sitting by yourself and having a session or a practice, or are you looking for stillness? Are you working for this place of awareness in your for it to become more
Mm,
present in your life?
yeah,
Or do you just let life be, sometimes you're Daniel and then sometimes you drop into awareness? How does it work
yeah,
in your everyday
yeah.
life?
It's more the second. I'm more just allowing to be what's there. Now, with Vortex Healing, where we have, firstly, wherever I've gotten to within my own Vortex Healing practice and my own sort of meditative practice, there's my own practices where I just drop into a space that's already free within my system. Um, we have um, practices within Vortex, let's say mantras, that help you to ground in that place without sort of mentalizing what does it mean to ground. Just by connecting with particular mantras, it allows me to, or it allows what is free within me to become more obvious, let's say. So there's still all of this fog and memory and attachment and identity in this system, and yet within all of that fog and memory and attachment, there's all this inner freedom. So when I do my meditation practice, I'm not looking for it, because if I go looking for it, I'm sort of going to be stuck in that place that's looking. So that's a little bit of a trap where I'm not trying to do a mind control or quieten my thoughts or look for stillness. I just allow with the help of a mantra, and because vortex healing is intended to transform, where there was identity to the history of Daniel, there's now more the presence of Daniel. Because that's a part of my practice, it makes it a lot easier just to meditate from that place of Merlin, which sort of grounds me in that place of, okay, this place of presence or freedom. Now, what can happen though, Lou, is the deeper we go into that inner space, we can be aware more then of what's not free. Because I think I mentioned before, those voices that are chattering either in the mind or in the body are not obvious to us. Most of it is happening in our unconscious. We've pushed that stuff way, way away or ignored it, or, it's happening at such a subtle level that we're just not aware of those voices talking, or those memories or attachments. So very often we don't even realize what's there. And so when we go into a deep meditation place, it could be like one of those, oh, wow, I just melted into oneness. Or it could be sitting there, melted into oneness, going, holy crap, I'm still holding on to a whole bunch of anger right there, in my system. I can just sort of drop into my body and there it is. Sort of just feel a place in my body. I don't need to be psychic. I don't need to have some sort of crazy sensing ability. It's just something comes up where this just either twitches or just says, hey, over here. And then something within me has this essence of anger. And with enough practice of meditation and vortex, then it becomes clear to me and obvious that, yeah, okay, there's still some anger there, just as an example. So then we can bring in our vortex healing tools, channeling, which we haven't spoken about yet, but channeling divine energy, divine consciousness to get into the root of where is that going? Where is that memory, the reaction to that memory still stuck in there? Still stuck in there. Now, it could be there harmless, kind of harmless, that it's only just come up as in a meditation. But it could also be that it's contributing to my digestive issues, because we look at our body typically as the sum of all of our parts. This is my liver does this, my kidney does that, my shoulder is, good for fancy
Golfing.
golfing. Um, 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 but actually, our body is amazing. It is, again, part of the whole. So everything works in one. Everything works together. So it could very well be that whatever is stuck there is actually causing my lungs to contract because it has to compensate. Those lungs may have some sort of emotional aspect of fear or something, or grief sitting in the lungs. That grief then may be playing a part in my sense of identity, my third chakra. That third chakra then is playing on in my stomach, which is having enough. You see how it just in 45 seconds, we've created a whole mess just from a shoulder. And at the same
Let's.
time, not just a mess, it's a beautiful way of understanding this whole evolution of the system.
I was going to say, let's call it a maze more than a mess.
Yes, right. That's great.
Okay, this could take two directions. I'll go with the body. You talked about the body a lot, and I like um yeah, I think that's the way to go. Let's see. Let's follow
Let's see
mystery.
where it takes us. Yeah.
Yeah, let's follow the maze. Because again, I've from my own experience as a human, I've experienced a lot of pain for a really, really, really long time, and I've tried for 25 years Western medicine because that's where I was born, and I took all the pills and I saw all the specialists. And I know you have this kind of background as well from
Yeah.
where we talked. And then all is one, all is
Yeah.
divinity.
Yeah.
And then we're going into the process of vortex healing and of awareness, and you start noticing all the thoughts pattern and the subconscious one, and then it's starting to be really hard to trust divinity, to actually enjoy the journey to find self-compassion and love for the pain crystallized in the body.
Yeah.
um and I'm wondering, is this for everybody? uh is this available, this practice of vortex healing and again advanced meditation practice, for everybody? And is there any danger for anyone to actually start hearing, not listening, but hearing those thoughts
Yeah.
and feeling really overwhelming, especially in a society today where information is all around. You don't know where are the fake news and what
Yeah.
is right and wrong. There is a lot of um, spirituality has a lot of deviance as well. There is a
Yeah.
so yeah. I guess I'm just throwing up my own confusion here.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm
Yeah.
sure it can actually. I'm sure I'm not the only one in on the past, because it's a really confusing past.
Yeah.
So between the physical pain, the mental noise, the
Yeah.
all is one.
Yeah.
How did you maybe kept a straight line? How did you kept
Mm.
faith? How did you know? How did you
Yeah.
kept trusting?
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah, cool.
So, so let me just very briefly um, talk about my history of coming up to Vortex Healing, because it might help put things in context. I had a lot of pain as a kid, a lot of emotional pain and physical pain. My emotional pain started when I was a very young kid, 6, 7 years old. Um, um, my grandmother was my closest friend. My parents were both working extremely hard. And so she raised me for the first few years, and she died of a heart attack, and she was living with us. And then all of a sudden she's not there. And so where's grandma gone? I say, and well, she's gone to heaven, of course. And I go, oh yeah, I'm good with that. What happens after heaven? Well, then where does she go? And everyone just sort of left me in the room, and just they didn't know how to answer that to a 6-year-old. I mean, they don't know. And to them, it's probably there's no way that they would even remember that moment, I'm sure. But to me, it caused a huge panic and an existential crisis of, well, what happens when I die? And then what happens when the world dies? And what happens, it sort of created this thing which is way too big for a 6-year-old to try to comprehend and to talk about. And so you're sort of left with all of this inner turmoil and pain. Um, on one hand, all of this inner turmoil and pain. That inner turmoil and pain, when I track back, was the beginning of my stomach issues and liver issues that created very shortly after um, I was diagnosed with an enlarged liver and a malfunctioning liver. And like you, I went through 15 years of all the specialists in Australia. And it was a little bit like I was passed from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And, I used to joke with them. I had a golf course in my arm from all the needles that they put in, from all the holes. And I think I used to entertain them a lot in the hospitals. And maybe that's why they kept calling me back for more, because, I would just entertaining these people that have to do their work. Um, but it, in my view, made me sicker. Um,
Mm.
um, it created a mistrust of a system, the medical system. So for many years, I wouldn't even go to a GP. Um,
I can
or
relate.
yeah, I was absolutely against everything. And then it also created an anger and a hatred against all systems, against corporate systems and government systems and anything that, and sure, there's lots of bad things going on in all sorts. That's a different, maybe we can talk about that on another
Sure.
time. But it created an internal anger where everything was bad, and all of my internal anger was projected onto the world. These days, you have it online where people will just project their outrage to whatever you can find to do that. And I see it clearly, because I remember that as being part of my own inner turmoil and anger. Like, how could you do that to me and put more stuff into me, and yet always just shrug your shoulders and be really happy about it. It's like, yeah, we don't know. We're going to send you now to the next oncologist. All sorts of things that they did, and it was normal. Um, and that was my life. I didn't trust anything. So to say I didn't trust the divine is you could say I absolutely didn't trust the divine, because there was just no trust. And it actually made me quite insular. I was diagnosed by a practitioner in Melbourne with depression, and sort of worked on that at one point. Then I got hit by a car. I was in an accident where I was walking across the road, and that sort of changed everything for me. So 25 years old, I was hit by a car, and I remember picking myself up the road, saying, "I think that just knocked some sense into me."
Oh,
Um,
wow.
um, I'm actually just remembering that right now. You know, I remember having this. It was almost like this bright light came into my body, said, "That just knocked some sense into you." And it was like I was still going down this road of self-absorbed anger, um, why me, victim me, poor me. And then I got the ultimate, almost ultimate poor me, you know. There's many worse things than that, but it wasn't fun, right? Just smack. And something just shifted me off that course. And looking back now, you know, there's a trust in, physically painful and displeasurable as that was,
Mm.
there was so much grace in that actually put me onto a new path of self-awareness, healing, and brought me back to my childhood, where there was that initial original sort of, what happens at the end of this sort of self-exploration. And I've been dabbling along the way because of this inner anger. I read some great books and would listen to some meditations, but I was still stuck in that path. At one point I met a lady who was a acupuncturist, and I thought, you know, I it was amazing because all these doctors that I'd go to, they could never. I'd always have to tell them my symptoms and tell them my story, go back to my diary, go back to my story and tell them this, and this, and then they would stick needles in me and then shrug their shoulders. And this Chinese lady just looked at me and she said, "You have this, you have this. I bet this is happening and this, and I wouldn't be surprised if this." And I was like, "Okay, give me your business card. This is really interesting." And it really changed something for me. So I actually think, in terms of my own trust in the divine, that it needed an actual sort of clump on the head for me to get back in touch with that fundamental part of Daniel that exists beyond the accumulated story,
Mm.
beyond all those things that happen to me that say, well, this is who I am. F you. This is who I am. You know, why me? This is who I am. Me again. This is who I am. This will never end. That's all
Mm.
a story. As true as it feels, and as painful as it is, it's still a story. And I think it took that moment of just clop, where there was just this flash of, this is who I am, not as a victim,
Mm.
not as not even as petrified of the end of time, just for a split second, like really
Yeah.
just a flash. So that put me on a path of trying to heal this stomach in a different way. Still had anger against the world, angry against the doctors, angry against the pharmaceuticals and all that stuff, and definitely against the government. Um, um, but it opened up this crack, just this thread of we'll call it presence, light, love, being, awareness, that was always there. It was always there, but now there is this thread there that, no matter how painful it was getting needles into me, I trusted it. There was a
Mm.
trust in that, no matter what it brought up, because it brought up emotional stuff as well. I then started finding energy healers around Melbourne, and I had no idea what they were doing. Really, no idea. Some days I'd lie on the table, and after 45 minutes, she'd tap me on the knee and said, "You're done," and off I would go, and I would have no idea. But something in that thread of light, love, being, awareness, trust. There's something in there. It's the only thing that I can trust. And the reason why it's the only thing that I can trust, because it's the only thing that will never change. It's the only thing that will always be with me and always be there as openness, presence, love, light. No matter what is happening to me, it's always there. So it's the only thing that I can trust. It has no language, no philosophy, no teaching. It's just pure presence, pure awareness, light, love. It's you could say it's where the divine is no longer experiencing itself as the diary of all of that. It's just the
Mm.
divine.
And
Um,
you back in those days, you already had that um, that sensation, that awareness that it was grace and light and love guiding
yeah,
you. Because
yeah,
from my place, sometimes when I do healing, I have no idea, but the reason I'm doing it is because I don't feel like there is anything else I could do in
yeah,
order to
yeah,
progress, evolve, and get out of the situation I'm finding myself. And I know I'm not satisfied. It's not really the right word, but I'm.
yeah,
Uh, it's not really a feeling of love, light, and grace.
yeah. Well, the divine is not always a feeling of love, light, grace, of how we spiritualize love, light, grace. Um, um, that moment where love, light, grace was recognized in my body, in my system, was lying on the floor on the road after being hit by a car. And there's all sorts of things going on in my body, and yet all I remember, I don't remember the pain of the physical pain. I know that there was physical pain there, but really what came into my path, in my journey, in whatever the light, whatever the divine was setting me up for, was this recognition of that love, light, grace is actually who I am. There is me without all of the diary, without all of the accumulated judgments and reactions to my memories and belief that is who I am. Um, um, there was something else I wanted to say in there, but something that you asked there, but it's gone. We'll come back.
Is it for everybody? That's what the other part of my question is was first, how did you find trust again? And I
Yeah.
think you
Okay.
went
Yeah.
through that.
Yeah.
And then
So
yeah,
yeah, thanks for getting me back on track. So over time, then I would sit with various awakening teachers and go to satsangs and try to come back to this feeling again. Sometimes I get a little glimpse. For me, I just enjoyed the satsang, the community of just going somewhere and sitting in this presence, sitting in this and in this essence of oneness. Let's say I didn't really get so much in terms of philosophy or teaching. I just enjoyed being there. And I didn't really get many friends from there or socialize. I just go, sit, immerse myself, and leave. Um, um, my wife Amanda, who will you've met and maybe will, I'm sure we'll bring her on sometime soon. Um,
definitely.
um, um, she introduced me to the hugging saint in India called Amma, um, Amritananda Mayi Mat Devi Mat. Um, Mata Amritananda Mayi Devi. That's it.
Yeah, I was gonna say repeat it
Yeah.
3 times really quickly.
Mata Amritananda Mayi Devi. Um, um, and when the moment I walked into that room when she came to Holland to visit, it was like I was sitting in that gap, what I thought was that gap of light, love, awareness, because it was almost like a thread that I could feel as part of me, but I was sort of sitting on the outside of it. There was a gap between me and whatever I thought that was. And the first time I laid eyes on her and I was in that room, it just opened. There it was. There it was, where it felt like coming home. It felt like coming home. So um, a few years later, I'll just sort of move along a little bit. Um, Discovered vortex healing. Went to a doctor in Amsterdam for, so over time my well, actually no, this was the only doctor that also we found had a white coat and a stethoscope, but he also did energy work. So I thought that was pretty cool. So that it was almost like a one foot, one toe back into talking with doctors again,
Yeah,
and appreciating the miracle of Western medicine as well, because there is a lot to behold with American with Western medicine. Um,
definitely. There is a lot of wisdom and beauty there too.
and so the interesting thing in talking of integrity is that um, I asked I asked this particular doctor to look at my stomach and look at through his energy work. And at one point he said, "Look, I've gone as far as I can with you. If you want to go deeper, you should see my receptionist because she's a vortex healer." And I thought that moment was such a bizarre, weird moment that I was really intrigued. I thought, well, there's got to be something in this. I also appreciated equally the integrity behind this guy who he could have kept just, just come back. I'll invoice you, keep coming back. But he said, there's nothing else I can do for you. But she can. Um, and in that moment, I went to pay my invoice, my bill, and I said, I also have to schedule a vortex healing session with you. And she said, well, what are you talking about? You're already a healer. And in fact, I can see you're going to be a teacher one day. And, I just thought it was nonsense what she was saying. My whole sort of mental thing. But I had to say something smart in the moment, right? So in the moment, I said, well, yeah, maybe, but only when I'm 70, when I've got enough life experience where maybe I'll be of any use to anyone. And in that moment, it's like she left and Merlin spoke. It's like her something opened up in her heart. And the next sentence was not out of her, but it was direct from source itself. This transformational quality of the divine called Merlin, that we call Merlin, said, that's your ego speaking.
Mm,
And Merlin literally pointed to the history, the diary, the referring part of my diary that I was trying to be Daniel all my whole life.
mm,
There it is. And it was again another one of those moments like when I was hit by the car.
mm,
Like something has just changed in my life. I just saw a part of me that's not who I am. And yet that's what I've been trying to be and trying to live with and trying to present and trying to make sense of and reconcile. Um, and as it happened, a week later, there was a vortex healing class in Amsterdam. And the moment I walked into that class, and we're going to come to your question.
that's all right.
The moment I walked into that class was the same feeling as when I walked into Amma. I was like, I'm home. I'm home. I don't have to be my diary. I don't have to be a collection and an accumulation of all my experiences. I can just sit here now and just absorb. I love the teacher who still is one of my dearest friends, um, was not wearing robes and didn't have. Not there's nothing wrong with robes or spiritual names, but at the time that resonated with me that here's this guy in jeans and a t-shirt um, with a normal name that was just said, "Come sit." And it was just it felt very normal and grounded to me. And the language was extremely esoteric to me at the time. Um, and yet the feeling, my experience was extremely practical and simple and grounded. Um, and that completely changed my life. It completely changed my life in that over the next 2 years of taking classes, all of my digestion stuff was gone
Wow.
on a physical level. Just to sort of tie that back onto what drew me there in the first place. Um, is it for everybody? It is for everybody. Um, um, well, let me just say, maybe this is a way of putting it. It's for anybody, but not for everybody. And so what I mean by that is that it's available to anybody, but not everybody is ready to, it's just not on everybody's path to do this. The one thing that I've realized the more I do this is that we think that we're in control of our destiny.
Mm.
Now, you talk about paradoxes. One of the setups of the divine experiencing itself as the divine is that we have to act as if we are in control. We have to take action. We have to take action to get myself to a doctor, to then make a decision to sign up for a class, or to walk across the road at a particular time where a car is coming, right? To then
Yeah.
create a bigger, more profound path of my life that otherwise I probably wouldn't have had.
Yeah.
Um, so is it for anybody? Yes. For everybody? No. It's not on everybody's path to do this work.
Mm-mm.
However, um, anybody, even if it's not on someone's path to take a class or to go down the path of deep healing, awakening, this type of work, it certainly can be useful for anyone to receive a session to help them through physical times, or breakup of relationships, or working through career stuff, sort of that stuff that we experience as humans. Vortex is great really for anybody and everybody.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And we'll get into all those topics on the following episodes we're going to have together. I have one last question for you
Sure.
today.
Sure.
Um, so we've been talking about divinity. We've been saying that all is one, that
Yeah.
that the one has an expression of itself, creating a reflection, consciousness.
Yeah.
We've been speaking about karma, about time. Um, Personally, I'm not one of those person believing in death. I do believe this physical body will eventually die,
Yeah.
but the energy within this body will keep on moving and having a journey.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, do we have any way out of this, of the experiment of awareness as life?
Yeah. Out of the experience as awareness as life. I don't actually I
Can
actually don't
awareness stop experimenting itself as life
experiencing. Sorry.
experiencing itself? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I didn't understand when you said experimenting. That's why.
No, experiencing.
Can
Sorry,
awareness can awareness itself stop experiencing itself as life? Is
as
that the question?
aliveness. Yeah, yeah. Can we? Because it
Awareness?
seems like life comes with death, and death comes with issue and suffering and all of that and
Yeah.
fear. So I'm a naturopath. My background is to find the root of stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's the question: is there a place where that's why I'm using the words stepping out of the game.
Yeah. Well, there is.
Sometimes,
There
yeah,
is.
some
And that's what we call
okay.
awakening. That's what we call awakening. Um, it starts off as, and in the vortex healing path, it's sort of a process. It's a process of awakening. It starts off firstly as awakening from identifying this sort of core I that sits in the heart, that I am Daniel, that I am the accumulation of Daniel. But then it starts to go a little bit deeper. It then starts to awaken to that I am consciousness, that I'm not just Daniel, that I am all of consciousness, that I'm not just a separate being, but I'm part of the manifestation as consciousness. And then it goes a little bit deeper where it says, where it doesn't say, but there's a realization that I am awareness, that I am awareness having an experience as consciousness, which is having an experience as being Daniel. And then it goes deeper and deeper and deeper until you get to a point where one can wake up out of the veil of duality, where there is the divine, the divine even needing to, that the divine having an experience as awareness, as consciousness. There is this sort of gap as what you're referring to. When does it all stop? Where does it all end? Is still implying that there is something and the divine. There's still an implication of a separateness there, of a duality.
Mm,
So then in the path of what we do with Vortex, or what Merlin does with us within Vortex, it takes us through various steps or depths of awakening, from basic awakening into, let's say, the original veil of duality, until it becomes what we call awakening to divinity itself, where where even the concept of awareness, consciousness, Lou, bookshelf, Daniel, just sort of comes back in just to be an expression of all of this. So with that comes an end of the need for time, the need for a beginning and end. It's just this. It's just this. It's just this moment.
mm, beautiful. Thank you so much. And just to give an idea of, for if people are interested, I'm going to ask you a few questions about really vortex healing as a path.
Yeah.
How long would it take for someone who's following from foundational to the most advanced class, if they're really involved into the process? How long
Yeah.
does it take to follow to from basic awakening to awakening to divinity?
So when we first started, we were in person, so it would take quite a long time to sort of and the thing with vortex healing, I should say, is that it's not a path that we've and Rick Weinman is the current day founder and the holder of the lineage. It's not something that he has um, developed out of his mind or out of his logic or created a framework. All of our classes, all of our healing tools and flavors of Merlin have come as a natural unfolding as the lineage grows and people bring their stuff in, and we look for ways of getting deeper into the energy system or deepening our own experience of awakening, and it just sort of it develops by itself naturally. We observe, we test, we look, we go, we become a little skeptical. Is this really true? Then we look, we go, yeah, that's true. Okay. And then something new sort of comes into the lineage, either as a healing tool or a new depth of awakening. Um, it's so having said that, it keeps evolving. It keeps
Mm,
evolving and developing over time. So from the foundational class, so for instance, I have two foundational classes left this year. If one was to take that class this year, by the end of next year, you would be at basic awakening or losing the core veil, which is completely crazy and unfathomable to my thinking mind that that's possible that we can move that fast these days. For the people that started in vortex healing back 30 years ago, that would have been possibly an 8-year process. Um,
wow.
so things are moving fast in terms of going from foundational all the way through to awakening to divinity. It's probably something like a 5-year process, which is lightning. It's lightning, and one of the things that I really want to stress about this is when we teach class and when we give suggestions for protocols of doing healings, we overstress the need to integrate and integrate and integrate, because
Mm,
so much moves in class, so much moves in a healing session, that we really spend a lot of time on integrating and catching up and recalibrating back into
mm.
life.
Interesting.
Yeah,
From 15, 20 years of process to a 5-year process today for someone really involved in doing the work. It
yeah.
looks like someday you might guys open a school or something. It's like a bachelor and a master degree, and then we can start PhD about about whatever
I've
all this is
I've,
going
I've
on.
heard that once or twice before.
Yeah.
Um, logistically, it would be a lovely idea. Logistically, that one's a challenge. So I facilitate classes in Asia, Australia, New Zealand. We divide things up. There's myself and 5 of the teachers. There's Rick, who's the lineage holder. He does the awakening classes and some of the sort of the deepest healing classes.
Mhm.
Then we have we have Anthony in Europe, Europe, Israel, and that part of the world. We have Lorraine in North America, so Canada, North America, and that area. We have Andrea, who's in South America and the Spanish-speaking countries, um, and myself in, I think I said, in that part of the world. And then we have Galen as well, who used to teach in parts of the US. Now she teaches globally, but she teaches a specific class on angelic consciousness, angelic heart, and maybe it's a nice little segue or teaser for possible future topics we could talk about, working with other beings. And,
Mm.
so far I've just touched on a little bit about working directly with the divine. We haven't even really spoken yet about how Vortex works or what happens in a class. That could be a nice chat to have. And then maybe how we also work with other beings in
I would
around, because
love to.
they do exist. We cannot be the only folks in the universe.
Exactly, exactly.
Cannot
No,
be.
and I would love to go into also the. Uh, I'm going to use the word science because that's one
Sure.
way to be curious and to look into things.
Yeah.
But actually, yeah, the how are those being, what are those being made of,
Yeah.
from a an energy point of view, if we had to analyze. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves already.
Yeah.
Could you share with the people, you're doing community healing once a month, when it's the
As
next
well.
one?
Yeah. Second Tuesday of every month. So May the 12th, Tuesday, May the 12th. It's in the Australian time zone. So Melbourne, Sydney time zone, 7 p.m.
Mhm.
People from Europe are welcome to attend. And we even get some folks in the US at 3 a.m. sort of coming up for it. The purpose of them is to um, talk a little bit about Vortex, but rather than as a lecture, to do a group healing, to give you a direct experience of what it is to receive Vortex. Yeah, we'll talk about the mechanics of Vortex. I was just about to get
Yeah.
to how
No,
that
no, we
works, but I'd
will.
love to have a chat about how that actually works. But it's a great community. It started 2 years ago, and we get a lot of people now each second Tuesday to the month. So maybe you can put the link to that free public healing on the on
Yeah.
your on your
We'll do that under
whatever.
the whatever this is, if it's on
Yeah.
YouTube or on Spotify, or
Yeah.
we who knows.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, I'll put all your information. As you said, you have two foundational class coming up. I think there
Yeah.
is one in May and another one
September.
September. So all of that will be written down. Yeah, as we said, so much to talk about in
Yeah.
future episodes. But for now, I think we have a pretty good picture of who you are, and and maybe that was just an introduction of what vortex healing is,
Yeah.
and is able to do and to help in terms of how the world is moving today. That's also one of the reason I wanted to offer this podcast and this space,
Mm.
is for people to see the we have options.
Yeah.
And the society and the governments and the journalists and all of that, they have a beautiful, they're following a story, and they're, from my perspective, it's an interesting story to choose.
Yeah.
But then there are a lot of other people like yourself and Rick, and who are just offering the possibility for people to look at that story from another perspective, and it's always interesting.
And imagine if you could be completely present with your story and just to enjoy your stories, whatever flavor or story that is, without sort of spiritualizing anything or bypassing the reality of our stuff as humans. Imagine if we could just be completely present and compassionate for ourselves, no matter what that story is. I'm sure our lives can really be free of a lot of suffering if we can get to that point.
Let's let the listeners and the viewers with that question. What would your life would be, guys, if you had no judgment about your own story, and could look at it with compassion?
Mm.
And then if you have any comments or question, you can just reach out or comment below, and we'll come back soon for another episode, and see where that leads. Thank you so much, Daniel, for today.
Thank you so much, Lou. Thank you for suggesting this. I never would have thought to do it. So I really appreciate you being the catalyst, and I'd love to do some more of this and dive a little bit deeper into this world with you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Wish you a beautiful day.
Thank
Thank you
you.
guys for listening. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll be back soon.
Bye.
Bye.